Bhishma? One thing.
That grandfather Bhishma was the son of Ganga and Shantanu.
Shantanu. Very good. One thing about grandfather Bhishma. Go ahead. One thing. Come on. One thing. He's a mighty warrior. That's tomorrow's class. But he was a mighty warrior. One thing that you know about grandfather Bhishma, besides he was a grandfather. Huh? He did what? He was a Pandava's son. The other way around. No. And when Pandu, here, let me help you. You'll get it. You go, oh yeah. Yes, in the earlier session today, we heard something about Pandu died. Pandu died, correct? And then the rishis advised Kunti, take your sons back to Hastinapur. They came back to Hastinapur. Who acted as the father of the Pandavas in the absence of the father of the Pandavas, Pandu? Fill in the blank. Grandfather Bhishma. He became like the father because they didn't have a father. They had a mother. Their father was departed. So he acted, he treated them like his own children. Sons of Pandu. Something that you can remember about grandfather Bhishma.
Bhishmadev's guru was Parashuram.
Very good. In fact, that's why we call him grandfather, because he was the grandfather of the Pandavas. Father and grandfather. You're looking at me like I said something wrong. What did I say wrong? Is it clear? Grandfather. To the Pandavas, he was the grandfather. But like the father, because their father was gone. And he was trained in military skill by Parashuram. Okay. You get the last shot at this one. One thing about grandfather Bhishma.
He was the eighth Vasu.
Eighth Vasu. Woo, woo, woo. Eighth Vasu. Okay, we're going to hear something about the Vasus. We got some smart kids here. A little bit starting from his boyhood. There's his mom and dad, Santanu, and Mother Ganga. And in his boyhood, he was named Deva Vrata. His mom gave him that name. And we'll hear a little bit about how all that happened. So his father was Santanu, and he was previously known as Deva Vrata. But his father had developed some mad attraction for Satyavati. And to secure her hand, when the father of Satyavati said, no, you're the king, yes, but you can't marry my daughter. We'll hear the explanation. I'll say it. The explanation was, my daughter has received a benediction from Parashuram that her son will become king. And your father your Santanu made a request that he wanted to marry my daughter, and I told him no. Wait a minute, I'm the emperor, and you're a fisherman. Why are you saying no? Because my daughter has a benediction, received a benediction from Parashuram, not Parashuram, from whom? Parashara Muni, thank you, that her son will become the king. And you already have your first son, Bhismadev. And so he'll become the next king. And so, sorry, but my daughter can't marry your father because there's already going to be the next king. So he went back, Santanu went back to his kingdom and became, a very sad, morose Santanu because he was really head over heels over Satyavati. And so Bhishma, there before he was Bhishma, he was, what was his name? Devavrata. Very good. So Devavrata asked the people in the palace, what's with my father? He was told no, that he cannot marry Satyavati, the daughter of a fisherman, because you're going to become the king. And she has this benediction from Parashara Muni. So he went to the painting, the drawing is showing, he went to the fisherman's home and he personally made the request, and the fisherman said, no, my daughter can't marry your father because her son will become the next king. And you're already going to become the next king, so she has to marry somebody else. Then Bhishma, Devavrata, made a vow, I won't become king. Now can my father marry your daughter? You see the daughter standing in the doorway. It's the very same. This is the drawing. There she's standing in the doorway. And here's the painting. She's standing in the doorway. So anyway, it's just a more modern image of the same painting. And so her father said, no, why not? Because if you marry and you have a son before my daughter has a son, your son will become the next king. And he said, no problem, I won't marry. I won't become the king, and I won't marry. So now can my father marry your daughter? He said, yes. And so for the rest of his life, because he said he won't marry and he won't become the king, then he didn't marry. He made a vow, and he kept his word. He in the next class, we'll hear that got him into a little bit of hot water with a certain lady who wanted to marry him. Okay, so because he made this vow, this name then became Bhishma, or one of a terrible vow. But frankly, I think it's a very nice vow. I live by it. It's very nice. It's not terrible at all. Saves you a lot of trouble. When his father got back and heard what his son had said, and he married Satyavati, he gave a benediction to his son, which is an important benediction. Who can make such a benediction? My dear son, you are so stern in keeping your promise. I give you this benediction that you will never die unless you desire. And who desires to die? Well, at a certain point, Bhishma desired to die. But who can give such a benediction? Must have been a very powerful personality. Now we heard he's one of the 8 Vasus. So here's a little bit about Vasu Katha. This is from a purport in Bhagavad Gita, Opulences of the Absolute. From Narayana, Indra is born. From Narayana, the 8 Vasus are born. From Narayana, the 11 Rudras are born. From Narayana, the 12 Adityas were born. Now, Adityas, they're sons of Aditi, so they're born from Kashyap and Aditi, not from Narayana. Is that a contradiction, or is it a contradiction? Not a contradiction, because ultimately everything comes from one source. There may be intermediate sources, as with all of these other entities, but their original source is the same. Narayana is the original source of everything. This Narayana is an expansion of Krishna. And down on the bottom right side, there's a Madhvacharya illustration. Let's see what Madhvacharya has to say. From Canto 6, Chapter 6, the sons of Vasu were known as the 8 Vasus. Just hear their names from me. Drona, Prana, Dhruva, Arka, Agni, Dosha, Vastu, and Vibhavasu. And there's another list, somehow there's a little bit different. 7th Canto Bhagavatam, Madhvacharya writes, there are 3 kinds of demigods. The Adityas, who are those? The sons of Aditi, the ruling demigods. The Vasus and the Rudras, beneath whom are other demigods like the Maruts and Sadyas. This is a standard understanding from Madhvacharya. It's like a well-known, accepted fact. 3 divisions of demigods. So here's a little nice chart that gives slightly different names of the 8 Vasus. And notice one of them is a female, Prithvi. Very common in the lists because there's different lists from different sources. Agni, Prithvi, Vayu, Antariksha, Aditya. Aditya in this case is the sun god. We heard about Surya. So another name for Surya is Aditya. Because, anyway, Chandrama, the moon god, Nakshatra. Anybody here knows a little bit about astrology? A little bit about astrology? Okay. You certainly know about nakshatras, if you know a little bit about astrology. The asterisms, it's also indicated, or constellations of stars, and the moon passes through them, etc., etc., etc. We can do calculations based on the positions of the moon in relation to the nakshatras. The lunar calendar calculation. And number 8, Dyo. It's a nice name. Not, hey, Dyo. Yes, modern. God of the luminous sky. God of the luminous sky. And Bhishma formerly was that one. Dyo. So one fine day, they happened to be in the vicinity where Vishishta Muni lived, somewhere in one of the forests of Mount Meru or Mount Sumeru. Those of you that know 5th Canto Bhagavatam know about Sumeru. You heard Sumeru? You've heard it. You don't know exactly what it is. Yeah. He lived in Mount Meru, and he was very austere, engaged in meditation, very, very, very powerful. And he had a wish-fulfilling cow, or kamadhenu. And with the kamadhenu, that would supply anything he liked, and he just liked that which could be used in service to making sacrificial offerings to the Supreme Lord. So he was a Vaishnava, and his kamadhenu was assisting him in getting what he needed for doing his procedures or his meditation and offerings. So one fine day, the 8 Vasus, headed by Prithvi, again, I'll make a note, Prithvi is a female. So normally it says the Vasus are with their wives, but Prithvi didn't have a wife. Prithvi is a female. Roaming in the forest with their wives. The Vasus entered the hermitage of Vishishta Muni. Hermitage means just the general, like you see in this drawing, a forested area, and he happened to be somewhere in that big, vast forested area. And in that whole vicinity, there was the Kamadhenu. She had a nice name, Nandini. And Nandini had a little calf. And they spotted the Kamadhenu. And Dio said to his wife, see over there, see that cow? That cow belongs to Vashishta. And it is said that the mortal who drinks the milk of this cow remains unchanged for 10,000 years. So they want immortality. You can't be immortal, but you can get in that direction. So drink Nandini's milk. Well, his wife was a little more ambitious than just drinking some of her milk. The wife made a request. I have a friend, Jitavati. She's the daughter of a sage. And I want to take this cow and calf, and make a gift to her of the cow and the calf. And Dio said, that's not a good idea. He's a Brahmana. You don't steal the property of a Brahmana to give to a friend, or for any reason. You don't take the property of a Brahmana. And not only that, it's Vashishta. Don't mess with Vashishta. And she was the nagging kind. Now, most ladies don't do that, but this lady did. And she insisted, and she insisted, and she insisted. Finally, he relented. So he, the leader of the 8, they together went to get the cow and tried to abduct the cow. Big problem. Because the all-knowing Vashishta knew what they were up to. And immediately he erupted. And you don't steal the property of a Brahmin. You don't steal the property of... And I engage this cow entirely in the Lord's service. And you want to steal that which enables me to give service to the Supreme Lord. So he cursed them. He cursed them to leave the celestial realm and take birth on earth as ordinary mortals. Now, there isn't an explanation because this question has come up 3 times. How did they find out? The Vasus found out. Uh-oh, Vashishta cursed us. So they went to Vashishta, petitioned Vashishta, please, we didn't mean it, and, make this penalty a little lighter, please. So Vashishta eased up a little bit. The great Brahmana Vashishta then compassionately said, this curse is suitable punishment for rectifying your enjoying mentality. So the punishment of a sage, just like Narada cursed Nalakuvara, Manigriva, and so many other opportunities or examples where someone was cursed, the purpose of the curse was not just, slap them. The purpose of the curse was to rectify a tendency, a misuse of free will tendency, to being in a celestial region, being deprived of that. Even Krishna says that in the Bhagavatam. So, it's a suitable punishment to rectify your enjoying mentality. You will be freed from it shortly after your earthly birth. However, your brother, Dio, who actually stole my cow, shall have to domicile on earth for a long period of time. He shall not have children. He shall not marry. He will, however, be a man of kingly virtue. This is Grandfather Bhishma. And will know the essence of the Holy Scriptures. He becomes a Mahajan. He will be an obedient servitor to his father. His father was Santanu. Santanu. He was very obedient to his father, but will have to live without female companionship. So that's Joe was cursed to take birth on earth. The brothers went together to Mother Ganga, because Mother Ganga, as we know, Mother Ganga comes from where? Where does she start? From where? A little hole in the universe, right? Vamana, Dave kicks a hole in the universe. And then the water comes through that hole and down and down and down and down from the celestial regions, down and down and down and down to the earthly realm, and below and then down and down and down. So Ganga purifies. The Vasas then begged the benediction from Ganga to cast them into the waters of the Ganges, immediately upon taking birth. But Joe resided on earth to fulfill the curse of Vashisha. So first it was, will you be the mother when we take birth, and after we take birth, throw us in the Ganga so we can come back. Because the curse had a benediction. You can, immediately after born, you'll come back. So they made this request of her. Vashishta thought it was a very good idea. He made the same request, so he has double requests. Now, she's not obliged because someone requested, but she wanted to do some nice service. So that's the mother, Ganga, and the 8 brothers, the 8 Vasus. Then comes the father. The father of Bhismadev and the other brothers was Shantanu, and we have the following information of him from his previous birth. He had a little problem also. He was a king in the lineage of Ikshvaku. What do we know about Ikshvaku? What do you know about Ikshvaku? You heard his name? Yeah. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse number 1. Krishna said, long, long ago, I taught this imperishable science to the sun god, Vivaswan, Vivaswan to his son, Manu, Manu to his son, Ikshvaku. You remember it now. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text number 1. Ikshvaku is the one from the Surya dynasty that began the lineage of kings on the earth planet that are from the Sun dynasty. He was the first one. And there's details, but I'll mention. Manu built the place where he wanted his son Ikshvaku to come. Ayodhya was built by Manu and of course, his assistants. And then he sent Ikshvaku, you go and rule there on earth. Ikshvaku. So Santanu was in that line from Ikshvaku. Who is another person? Who is another person who was in the line of Ikshvaku? Ramachandra, right. Ramachandra was in that same Surya dynasty from Ikshvaku. So was Shantanu. But he had a different name, because this is before he was Santanu. He was a king named, there are different versions, Mahavishya, so I'm going to use that primarily. Mahabhisha is also a name, Mahavishya. So he was anxious, very eager, enthusiastic to attain heaven. Now, in the Ikshvaku line, they're Vaishnavas, and this particular king wasn't exactly a Vaishnava. He wanted the kingdom of heaven. And so he did that what he needed to do, and it was eventually granted residence in heaven. So at the end of his life, he went to heaven. However, problem, when he went to heaven, there was an assembly of gods that went from heaven to Brahmaloka. They were invited for a big Brahmaloka festival. And when he was there, he saw Ganga. And when he saw Ganga, it was woo, woo, woo. Ganga is very attractive. And not only she was very attractive, suddenly a gust of wind came and blew her clothing in such a way that her garments exposed parts of her body. The other demigods looked away. Mahavishnu didn't look away. He stared at her form and her beauty. And Lord Brahma, who was having the festival, saw all this going on, and he cursed Mahavishnu. You're going to be born on earth, but you'll return here after one life. So that's Santanu. Santanu. Then he was given a choice by Grandfather Bhishma, who would you like to be your father when you go up here on earth? And that was, he selected a king who was a great Vaishnava named Pratipa. We're going to hear a little bit more about Pratipa. So Pratipa is on earth, in the earthly realm, and he happened to see Ganga Devi. And when he happened to see Ganga Devi, he became very attracted, and she became very attracted to him. So there was some discussion about should we get married, and Pratipa said, I'm a little on the older side. I don't yet have a son, but when I have a son, your son should marry you. So Pratipa's son became Santanu, who married. And then he told his son, Santanu, the day will come when you will meet a very beautiful maiden near the side of the river Ganga. Don't ask her any questions about her background or credentials or passport or visa or any of that stuff. Just say yes. She'll approach you and just say yes. So it happened. He informed his son, Santanu, about this beautiful celestial maiden he's going to meet sometime later. Meanwhile, we just heard, Ganga had made this promise both to the 8 Vasus and to Vashishta that she's going to become the mother of the 8 Vasus, and so Santanu was going to become the father, but Santanu didn't know that yet, but she knew because that was the prearranged arrangement. So one fine day, the king, strolling along the side of the river Ganga, saw Ganga Devi herself, and he was struck with Cupid's arrow, and he, very directly approached her, and you're the celestial personality, would you accept my hand in marriage? And ladies, listen to her conditions. Yes, on 2 conditions. You never say no. Whatever I want, you never say no. Is it a deal? He agreed. And if whatever happens, you never speak harsh words. He agreed to both conditions. So they became married. And in course of time, all the 8 Vasus were born between the combination of Santanu and Ganga Devi. And what happened was, because he had made this promise, and she had made a promise to the Vasus and to Vashishta, each time a child was born, ceremoniously she took the child and dropped the child in the river Ganga. The child drowned. And no, because the Ganga stream flows down from the heavenly realm, that was their pathway to return back to the heavenly realm. Kijai. Very quick return to the celestial realm. However, when it came to child number 8, Santanu couldn't take it and said, wait, don't. And she said, that's it, I'm leaving. And sure enough, she immediately turned and left with her 8th son in toting along the way. And she just poof, disappeared. Poor Santanu. 7 children tossed in the river, and the 8th child taken by Ganga Devi. He write a letter to his GBC and say, "What kind of ruler are you?" Except that it's a providential arrangement, but it certainly wasn't easy. And meanwhile, what did Ganga Devi do? Ganga Devi went to the celestial realm. She had Vashishta and Brihaspati teach Deva Vrata, was the name she gave him, all branches of knowledge. Whatever Brihaspati knew, now Deva Vrata knows. Because he was very qualified, so he could learn quickly, and he learned. And Vashishta, how much did Vashishta know? Vastly learned. And so those two teachers, and as was mentioned, he had a military instructor, and that military instructor is pictured on the left there. That's Parashuram. How'd you like to have Parashuram as your teacher? So after some time, 32 years later, Santanu was going for a stroll along the river Ganges, and much to his surprise, the flow of the river Ganges was a trickle, nearly nothing. And he had never seen anything like that before. So he went upstream, 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 upstream. And he saw this young fellow, young, by this time 32. He hadn't seen his son in 32 years, except for the first day. And with celestial arrows, he was blocking the flow of the Ganges. Who can do that? Devavrata did it. And so when he saw this young man doing this amazing thing, immediately by his side, Ganga Devi appeared and introduced them. This is your son, 32 years later, and he's been trained this way, that way, the other way. And his name was Devavrata. Here he is. You see the introduction being made. Please enjoy his company. And poof, she disappeared. I'm turning you over to him. He'll be qualified to become the next king. And she disappeared. So son and father, in course of time, became very attached to one another. And then comes the story of Satyavati, where in the 9th canto, chapter 22, there's a little, backstory, then a backstory behind the backstory. We did a little bit of this before, but here it is again. She was actually the daughter of one of the 8 Vasus, but a king of Chedi kingdom, who was the father. And the mother was Matsya Garbha, a fish. Remember this? Some of you were not with us. It's a fascinating story. There was an Apsara who was cursed to take birth on earth by a Brahmana. Doesn't say exactly what she did, but she did something, and the Brahmana cursed her, you take birth on earth as a fish. She took birth on earth as a fish in the river Yamuna. And so Uparichara Vasu had a chariot that was given to him by Indra, a crystal chariot, not just a marble chariot, but a crystal chariot. Woo woo, crystal chariot, flying in the sky. And that's where he got the name, Upadi Chara. He would travel in the sky. And he had a wife, a queen, and they were very attracted. They were planning to have a child. We heard this description. And on the very day that was the appropriate day for her, by various calculations, that a child would be conceived, that evening, in the morning of that evening, morning of that day, the ancestors requested some service from him. Go to the forest and get an animal that can be used for our particular sacrifice. So he put their interests above his interests. And we heard the story. he was so much absorbed in anticipating for a month that he would have the opportunity to conceive a child with his queen. He discharged semen, and the semen was captured on a leaf. The leaf was given to a hawk, sent with a hawk to take back to his wife, Garika, so she could bear a child. But the leaf and the semen of the king never made it, because as the hawk was flying, another hawk saw and thought it was some meat. They wanted the meat. They squabbled over the meat. There wasn't even food for the hawk. And the leaf fell, and the semen was swallowed by this fish that was the Apsara. So after the gestation period of time, the fish was caught by a fisherman. Now, many of you know this, and I'm just saying the whole story again because there's some that weren't with us, because it's important. Who is Grandfather Bhishma? And who is Satyavati, the mother? So after some time, both a male and female child are born from that fish. And when the fisherman who caught the fish opened up the fish to put in the fish market, much to his surprise, there were a male and female human inside the body of the fish. Very surprising. So he was so surprised he went to the king of Chedi, Uparichara, and said, this is what happened, and Uparichari was astonished. He accepted the male child, who was actually his son. His name was given the name of a fish named Matsya. Matsya, like Matsya Avatar. Matsya. So that son became the next king, Uparichara's successor to the throne, his own son. And the female was given back to the fisherman to take care of. And one of the reasons was she smelled like a fish. I don't know if you've ever been around fishy smells, but fishy smells smell not nice. So she smelled not nice, but she was beautiful and charming and all those nice things. But, this other quality. So the fisherman had an idea. If she takes the profession of a boatman conveying people across the Jamuna, she may have as a passenger one day a sadhu. And the sadhu may give her some blessing. If she gets some blessing, that her life can be much better. So that was his reason for giving her that service. And as you see in the painting in the background, there's Parashara Muni. And Parashara Muni had a desire to cross the river. So he got in this boat, and Matsya Gandha was the boat lady. And as they're crossing the river, he did some astrological calculation and concluded this at this very moment an incarnation of the Supreme Personality is going to appear. So he turned to Matsya Gandha. Gandha means fragrance, like incense. Fragrance, Gandha, fragrance. So but Matsya Gandha, not nice. He requested her, would you be willing to be the mother of an incarnation of the personality of Godhead? So the painting shows there are other boats crossing the river, and she gestured to them and said, well, how's this possible? We're right in plain sight. There's so many other people. And he gave the answer, no problem. She had a little formula. And each time he checked the box, and it was okay. I have mystic powers, and I can create an island and create fog around the island. And so we can associate with one another, and no one will see on that island. And then she said, well, that's okay, but I'm not married. And if I have pregnancy, how do I explain my pregnancy to others? Because I'm not married. And he said, no problem. Pregnancy, your virginity will not be lost, and immediately a child will be born. Didn't give the science of how that would happen, but she trusted him. He's Parashara Muni. And so agreement was made. They went to this mystical island, and on a dvipa, Krishna Dvaipayana was born. And when Krishna Dvaipayana was born, he spoke to his mother and said, if you ever, I'm going to leave now. If you ever need me, just call me. And then Parashara Muni gave this two final benedictions. One, two things. Your fragrance will change from smelling like a fish to in 8 miles direction, the finest celestial fragrance. Big change. And the second is, your next son will become a king. So when she went back and told Daddy, guess what happened today at the boat? So because of the change of the fragrance, he immediately understood this prophecy of Parashara Muni is going to happen. And that led to this appeal to the father to allow the fisherman father to allow Satyavati to marry Santanu. When Santanu asked, the father objected. So Bhishma came and took this vow saying, I won't become king and I won't get married. So I won't have children. So Satyavati married Santanu. So now Santanu said, this is the second wife. The first wife was Ganga. And Bhishma was the firstborn son. And then second, with Satyavati, there was born these two sons, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. The younger of the two was Vichitravirya, the two sons of Santanu and Satyavati. Here's this chart showing that. Right in the center, in blue letters, Satyavati and Santanu had two sons. Now, Chitrangada became the king, but he died early. It left the younger brother, Vichitravirya. Vichitravirya had two wives, Ambalika and Ambika and Ambalika. There's a whole other presentation that's not for this, it's not Canto 1, Srimad Bhagavatam. There was a third sister. And the third sister ended up being the demise of grandfather Bhishma. You know her name? Amba. So it's sounding like it's a long story. We won't go into it because this is grandfather Bhishma, Canto 1, pure devotees. So when Vichitravirya was to be married, this is a detail, Bhishma, in the absence of the father, Santanu was the father, in the absence of the father, Bhishma took the responsibility to make arrangements for wives, or a wife for his younger brother. In the absence of the father, the older brother looks after the younger brother, like he's the father. That's just culture, Vedic culture. So he, grandfather Bhishma, heard there's going to be a Swayamvar ceremony of the king of Kashi. So he traveled all the way by chariot to the Swayamvar ceremony for these 3 princesses with the plan that he was going to kidnap them and bring all 3 of them back to Hastinapur to marry Vichitravirya. And it happened, and there's a big battle, and Bhishma defeated everybody, and they're back in the home where plans are being made for Vichitravirya's marriage to all 3 girls. But one of them said privately to grandfather Bhishma, I've given my heart and my word to Shalva, and so I don't want to marry your brother. I want to go back to Shalva. She said, okay, you're free to go. She went back to, it's a long, all Mahabharata lengthy story. I'm just doing it very quickly. She went back, Shalva said no. She went back to Bhishma, Bhishma said no. She's stuck. So she, Amba, went to Parshuram. Oh, he promised. Help. So Parshuram took sympathy, and he ordered Bhishma, marry her. He said, oh, you're my spiritual master, but you've given an order that's in contrast to the laws of Dharma. I can't break my vow. And one can disobey, this is a detail, one can disobey the direct instruction of a spiritual master on 3 conditions. He gives the 3 conditions, because he's Bhishma, he knows the scripture. And he gives these 3 conditions and says, I can't follow your instruction. I will not follow your instruction. If you command me, then let's do battle. And a nice place to do battle is Kurukshetra. Let's go to Kurukshetra and have a battle. And whoever wins, wins. So Parshuram had a battle for 28 days with Bhishma. Parshuram, incarnation of the personality of Godhead, warrior Parshuram, couldn't defeat Bhishma. Whoa. Some things happened. He was informed, Parshuram was informed, you're not going to be able to defeat them. Just put down your weapons and let him go. And he gave the explanation. So, and he had his realization, I'm the personality of God, and they can't defeat Bhishma. So he told Bhishma, very well. And he told Amba, I was unable to defeat Bhishma. So you can go and do what you like. She didn't take no for an answer. It's a long story. She went on revenge binge. And a long story, very, very complicated story. That's a whole other class. She was born again. She got a benediction from Lord Shiva without all the whole thing. She was born as a woman in her next life, who then became a man by an arrangement by one sage, and da. And Bhishma informed the Pandavas, the only way you can be victorious is you have to put Sikandi, which is a female name, Sikandi, which is a female name. I'm not going to fight someone that has a female name or is a female. I'm not going to do it. So just put her in front, have Arjuna right behind him, and then Arjuna can kill me. Because if you don't kill me, you're not going to be victorious. So please, you have my blessing. Kill me. So that's what happened. Sikandi didn't kill him. Arjuna did. By a strategy that was given by Bhishma. Anyway, that's tomorrow's class. The warrior. Stay tuned. You coming for tomorrow's class? Yeah. In addition to what we just described, he's one of the 12 Mahajans. Now, how do we know he's one of the 12 Mahajans? On the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam, we know from one of the 12 himself. And that one of the 12 himself was who? Who? Who announced who the 12 Mahajans were? Yamaraj, right? Yamaraj, you're right. Very good. You know the circumstance? Some of you that may not know the circumstance. When it was time for the demise of one devotee who had born a Brahmin but became corrupted by a prostitute, his name was Ajamila. And Ajamila's deathbed, here come the Yamadutas to take him to the court of Yamaraj. And normally when somebody sees the Yamadutas, it's really scary. They would just scream. But he didn't scream. He called his son, who was born of a prostitute. But because of his childhood activities as a Brahmana, he named the son Narayana. So in a loud voice, he called 3 times, Narayana, Narayana. So by calling the name, the Vishnu Dutas came. And the Vishnu Dutas ordered the Yamadutas, stop. And the Yamadutas said, what? Whoever stopped death? Who are you guys? And, back and forth and back. So they left. The Yamadutas went back to the court of Yamaraj and explained what happened. They said, who are those guys? We thought you are the supreme. Who can stop death? No one can stop you. But there are these other fellas, and they stopped us. Are there 2 gods? There can't be 2 gods. That would be too complicated. There's only one. Who's God, anyways? And then this the circumstance where Yamaraj gives the list of these 12. So you see the verse number, and there's the 12. And listed in them, amongst the 12, is Grandfather Bhismadev. He's one of the 12 great authorities. And he, Bhismadev, was a very dear devotee of Krishna. We're going to have an abrupt ending. This is a shorter class because we're going to have another class tomorrow, more about the mighty warrior, Grandfather Bhishma. But here he is, lying on the bed of arrows. And let me do a little history. Some of you like history. You ready? I'm ready. I'm just making sure everyone's being very attentive. In Mahabharata, I had to read this section like multiple times to make sure I got it right. Before the battle, around 1 week before the battle, Krishna has a discussion with Karna about the upcoming battle, before the battle. And back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And Krishna says at the end of that discussion, the battle can take place in about a week on the dark moon night. That's when the battle began, and that's when Bhagavad Gita was spoken. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken the morning of when the battle began, and then the battle. That's day number 1, on the dark moon night. I'll say it again slowly. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken on a dark moon night, on the morning after the dark moon night, morning after the dark moon night. So by Titis, it's still in that same time frame. Grandfather Bhishma, according to Mahabharata, will hear tomorrow. grandfather Bhishma was shot down with Sikandi in the front and Arjuna firing the arrows on the 10th day of the battle. Something happened on the 9th day. Then the 10th day is when grandfather Bhishma was lying on the bed of arrows. That's the 10th day. The Kurukshetra battle lasted for 18 days. And then after the 18 days, the battle was over. And many things happened after that, including going back to Hastinapur, Yudhishthira becoming crowned officially because he'd already done the Rajasuya Yagya. He became the emperor. Some more days passed. And 58 days. Do the math. I invite you, not challenge you, but invite you. Take a look at your calendar when the dark moon night was. The 10th day after that is when grandfather Bhishma was laid low with arrows. And 58 days later is when he passes Bhishma Ashtami. That's when Bhishma left. And he says on that Ashtami day that I've been lying for 58 nights. 58 from the time he was, not when that battle of Kurukshetra began, but when he was lying like this. And he was waiting because he had the ability to leave his body if he wanted, when he wanted. And he waited for the moment when the sun was moving into the northerly direction. The Uttarayana, Makara Sankranti. Look at your calendars and figure it out. So here we see the painting. He's Krishna's devotee. Notice in the painting it shows Krishna with 4 arms because although Bhishma was all-knowing, he had a particular Ishtadev, a worshipable deity. For him, his worshipable deity was Parthasarathi. Partha, meaning Arjuna, the son of Pritha, is Partha. And Sarathi means the chariot driver. So it was his Ishtadev, his relishable form of the Lord. Bhismadev knew well that Lord Krishna is the original Narayana. His worshipable deity was 4-handed Narayana, but he knew that 4-handed Narayana is a plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. Indirectly, he desired Lord Sri Krishna to manifest himself in his 4-handed feature of Narayana. So Krishna did, as you see in the painting. I mean, not all artists get it right, but this particular painting, that's why I selected the particular painting. And who is that person standing next to Krishna with a bow? Parashar Muni. No, not Parashar Muni. Lord Parshuram. Yes? Yes? And the Pandavas. Now, kneeling by the side of grandfather Bhishma is who? Yudhishthira. Because Krishna inspired Yudhishthira to ask grandfather Bhishma to give a Bhagavatam class in that condition. He didn't say, can you give a Bhagavatam class? He asked, so now that I'm the king, what are the duties of a king? And how to execute the duties of a king of the world? That's a good question. So then Bhismadev gave his lessons. The fighting was an exchange of transcendental pleasure between the Lord and Bhismadev. The Lord was perfectly happy with the wounds caused by the sharpened arrows of Bhismadev. His throwing of sharp arrows at the transcendental body of the Lord is as good as the worship of another devotee who throws soft roses upon him. And this is our final slide. there's grandfather Bhishma. It's described in the Mahabharata that two fingers distance between all the arrows that were piercing the body of grandfather Bhishma. And he stayed like that for 58 days. And then they came, and then he asked their permission, and he withdrew. We find these prayers in the 9th chapter of Canto 1. And he fixed his mind in Nirvikalpa Samadhi on the personality of Godhead and left this world with his mind fixed on the Parthasarati. So that's our discussion on today's topic, the topic of, little background of the life of grandfather Bhishma. So we've had a lively discussion so far. Every single class, I'm sure there's going to be another lively discussion. So let's see if there's some topics you'd like to discuss. You got your first one with your hand up. Do you have the portable microphone? He's right over here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for a wonderful class. So, I have a question on how Vashishta cursed the 8 Vasus. So, for the curse, did it instantly happen, or could the
It
people
happened
got
instantly.
cursed?
It happened instantly.
Did they have a choice of when they wanted the curse to happen?
No. Sometimes, but not this case.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Main message is don't mess with Vashishta. Don't steal a property of Brahmana. Don't mess with Vashishta. You can have a big problem. Yes, over here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful lecture. So my question is, why did Bhismadev wait for 58 days?
Simple answer.
When the sun, why did he wait for the sun to come north?
He didn't have to do anything. He had the choice to do whatever he wanted to do, and he was already completely fixed in Krishna consciousness, so he didn't need an auspicious moment. But there is such a thing as auspicious timing of things, and he chose an auspicious timing. And it's the auspicious timing specifically is the movements of the sun moving, because just like, it's the days, it's winter, the days of sunlight, the period of sunlight gets less and less and less and less, and then it starts to go in the other direction, get a little bit. So that northern movement of the sun, for those in the northern hemisphere, is an auspicious juncture of time. And it commences the beginning of an auspicious time. So for one who leaves their body or wants to arrange, something else, a marriage or some event or something, you calculate, astrologers calculate auspicious times. So he waited for the auspicious time. He didn't have to, but he did.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. There's a question in the back. Just pass the microphone back. Raise your hand again so they know.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for a wonderful class. So, is there any background behind Santanu could give such a powerful benediction?
I don't know how he
Brahma
had.
not given-
Who has such a power? I don't know of anyone who has such a power. But he somehow was powerful enough to say, and it was true. He wasn't a Brahmana. He was very powerful. I marked on it. It's definitely extraordinary in where that power came from. It ultimately came from Krishna, because anything powerful and wonderful comes from Krishna. But what was the merit that he had to have such a power? I don't know. Back behind you on the stairs.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for that.
I can count on you for a question or two or three.
I have actually 3 questions.
I thought.
May I? So, first question is maybe it's covered in the next class, but what are in the Bhagavatam, like we hear about Shukadev Goswami, Vyasdev, Kunti Maharani, they all have nice prayers.
They also have what?
Nice prayers.
Yeah, they have prayers.
And in case of Bhishmadev, his devotional activities are not mentioned other than he has a chivalrous relationship with Krishna, which seems like fighting. Are they always fighting?
No. You don't. Please don't reduce it to that. First of all, on the comment about prayers, you've read the Bhagavatam, so you know the prayers to Krishna before his departure are so eloquent. So he has prayers. First of all. Second, this is my understanding that there's this reason, that reason, the other reason, but overriding all those other reasons doesn't mean they become zeros. But the 10 is rasa. Grandfather Bhishma's rasa with Krishna was what? No, that's a secondary rasa. What's his primary rasa? Service. He was Krishna. He saw himself as Krishna's servant. And as Krishna's servant, it was something very important for him because it was something very important for Krishna, the secondary rasa. So decisions were made consciously or by Leela Shakti we've been discussing, by the potencies of Krishna, for him to be in opposition. Because chivalry without opposition, there's no chivalry. But it's not the primary. So it goes like this. Primary rasas become stimulated by actions of the personality of Godhead, creating secondary rasas which enhance the primary rasa. So it's like, we'll see it will come tomorrow. But Grandfather Bhishma, made vows that he knew wouldn't happen because Krishna made him break his vow. And his vow was we'll cover it tomorrow. He'll kill the Pandavas with these 5 arrows when he already informed Duryodhana it's not possible. It's not possible. It's not possible. With these 5 arrows, I'll kill the Pandavas. It's not possible. Because why? Because Krishna will protect his devotees. But there's primary and then there's second. So the secondary rasa trumps everything. That's my understanding. It's the teaching of Rupa Goswami, and it's the teaching of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and it makes complete sense. So there's secondary reasons, but the primary reason is rasa, but it's servitorship in the mood of chivalry. I'll serve you in the mood. So when Krishna breaks his vow and picks up the chariot wheel, this is day number 9, Bhishma drops his weapons before Krishna. He just wanted Krishna to do it, and Krishna did it. Smash me. My departure will be glorious. Smash me. So it's chivalry. He wanted Krishna, and Krishna wanted him to do what he did. So he did what he did because Krishna wanted him to do what he did because of that secondary rasa as in servitorship. Now, it's not a normal servitorship. Servants don't like to cause some difficulty for their master, enough that he has to break his promise. But who could do that but Bhishma? Krishna. Anyway, Krishna's protection of the Pandavas meant more to him than keeping his own word. That's rasa. The protection rasa. So rasa trumps everything. That's the teaching of Rupa Goswami. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. You know, we can go back and back and back and back. But why does Krishna appear? Excuse me, why does Krishna appear? We have our reasons. There are two main verses of Bhagavad-gita. When there's discrepancy in dharma, or pratranaya sadhunam vinashaya taduskatam dharma sangsta, we have those reasons. Those are not the primary reasons. The primary reason, according to the teachings of our Gaudiya Acharyas, Krishna comes to reciprocate love with his perfect devotees. And then so many other things happen. And the love of Grandfather Bhishma towards Krishna was servitorship with the secondary rasa.
Maharaj. So the next question I have is, you mentioned, maybe I didn't hear it. You mentioned there are 3 reasons to disobey.
Tomorrow.
Okay. But the question is,
The principle that was violated, besides, the application of the principle, is he was being asked by his spiritual master to violate his vow, which is contrary to dharma. You don't ask someone to violate their vow. The guru doesn't ask a disciple to violate a vow that they've taken. And you're asking me to do that, so this is adharmic, and I will not follow an adharmic instruction. And if you insist on it, and if you're the choice you give me is you'll defeat me in battle, let's go to Kurukshetra. So tomorrow, if you want to do it today, I can do it. Go to tomorrow's class,
I will just mention the question. Is that we read Dharmam tu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. That dharma is what Krishna is establishing. Bhagavan establishes.
yeah, and
So everything else is subservient to that.
yes,
So Parashuram, being the Supreme Lord, asked him. So
but
that's
it's
what-
Leela. Come on, give Krishna a break. He's performing a Leela. It purposefully is a Leela. It's all part of a grand Leela. And Krishna's doing things the way Krishna does things, and you want to fault Krishna, go right ahead. That's the fallback. It's rasa is everything. The whole thing. I mean, A to Z. Amba, and they got back on the austerities that she underwent. Wow. Superhuman. For why? So that Bhishma could be killed on the battle. With Arjuna doing the arrow, so Arjuna getting tested by Krishna. You'll see it tomorrow. You'll see it tomorrow. But you'll get the picture. I'm thumping my hand on the armrest here, because it's so important to understand. Behind everything is the happiness that Krishna derives by engaging with his pure devotees. And Arjuna certainly is one. So he puts Arjuna this bind. And it happens not only in the chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita, but it happens again towards in day 10 of the battlefield.
Last question.
Yeah.
Just listening to the pastimes of like Shantanu meeting, and it's sort of like predicted ahead of time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like
Scripted. So
scripted,
there's no
yes.
free will.
Yes.
There's no. This is the argument. There's no free will. It's all scripted.
Well, it's like this person will like this person, and that predicted beforehand.
There's free will, even when stuff happens. There's free will at every moment. It's intrinsic to the soul. Let me throw one at you and see if you can catch it. Get your catcher's mitt ready. You ready? Vashishta said to Vasu number 8, you'll have to live a long lifetime and then you can come back. But he didn't come back. What happened? He went to Vaikuntha, where the four-armed form of Vishnu is the presiding deity. He didn't go back to Vasuloka. The other 7 did. That sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? Was there free will optional, or it's already scripted?
But it was Vasishta's, but Krishna intervened.
Okay, you got it. But then there was also free will choices along the way, wasn't it? Free will is always operative. Don't cancel it because things are predicted. I had this discussion with two times with college kids. You know how college kids can be, smarty pants college kids. And we went around and around and around and around, and they didn't want to let go, just like a pit bull. They wouldn't want to let go. Okay. Free will is intrinsic to the soul. We're parts and parcel of the Supreme. He has unlimited. We have limited. You never lose it. It's always something you can exercise. Even when something is predicted, there's choices we're making as things are predicted. Guna and karma don't bind unless you relinquish your freedom, your free will, and choose Maya. But if you choose Krishna, then the script can change. That's very fundamental to Krishna consciousness. And how is that possible? That free will can be redirected by bhakti. And then there's our whole teachings on bhakti. And the essence of bhakti is relationship with the personality of Godhead, bhakti rasamrita sindhu. So it's a wonderful topic. A superficial understanding leaves holes. That this thing falls through and that thing falls through, but what doesn't fall through is rasa. Krishna's desire. He is the supreme enjoyer. Rasa vaisaha, and that predominates everything. When he appears, it predominates everything. The coverings become saturated with spiritual potency. The material becomes spiritual. I'll invite you, you don't have to do this, but topics like this, because I over the Thanksgiving weekend, I gave a 13-part seminar on Madhurya Kandamani, and this topic and so many other topics that we've been discussing are found there. So listen to the recordings, and I think you'll have 56 questions to ask me. But, it answers a lot of these things. And it's from our acharyas. Vishwanath is at the feet of Rupa Goswami, who is at the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the personality of Godhead. Okay. Someone else, behind you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I just had a question. If Lord Parshurama was a Chiranjeevi?
Lord Parshuram was what?
Was a Chiranjeevi? I mean, we do see,
Yes. He's the personality of Godhead. He's not just Chiranjiva.
I mean, we see...
His lifetime spans many. He was present, yes. He was present during Ram's Leela, and he was present during Krishna's Leela. So his life spans many yugas. But we discussed it this morning. Were you there this morning? Yeah. So the 24th yuga cycle, the 24th yuga cycle is when Ramachandra came, and Parshuram was there during that time. And the 28th yuga cycle, Parshuram is still around. 28th yuga cycle, that's a long time. It's not just Satyatreta, Dwarpa, and Kali. It's 4 yuga cycles. He has a long life. Does that answer your question?
He's still around, I suppose.
Oh, he's been around.
I mean, not like Lord Krishna. We do. I mean, have the pastime of his disappearance and so on.
Yeah, he
Unlike
was.
Lord
He was a
Krishna.
son. He had appearance. He had Jamadagni and everything. Okay. Someone else. Okay, up front, our intelligentsia in the front row.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. So I had a question, like elaborating on the point that Bhismadev went back to Vaikuntha. So does that mean like there are only like 7 Vasus left, like in the heavens?
Oh, good question. It probably had a substitute. It's not. It's It's in a. My understanding is it's an appointed post. It's not like something else. Not like you're born a Vasu and that's it. There's an appointed post. That's my understanding. And so, if he's absent, then someone else is appointed. But I've not read anything like that. It's just presumption. 2 + 2 generally equals 4.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. What about the ladies? Come on. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.